What are your thoughts on the Mike Brown move? Because to me, it kind of seemed like a lateral. I think it came off to me as if Mike Brown, I listened to his press conference and I actually came away kind of encouraged. I was like, this guy's learned from every step of every place that he's been. And hopefully he can apply some of those learnings to this situation. This situation's a bit different. New York is a beast. And they're actually good right now. I think the one thing that got Tibs in trouble is that he couldn't adapt. He adapted too late. He's trying to get people in the rotation in playoff time when you should have experimented that in the regular season. Having watched this team in Summer League, I'm not super confident in their farm. It doesn't look like Tyler Kolek looks to me like he's like a backup point guard. Yeah. Kevin McCullough looked really good. Mohamed Diawara gave me some flashes that I was like, oh, okay, maybe this guy could be a guy in the future. The problem is this isn't going to be guys that you're going to be putting in your rotation next year. What they did do in the offseason was get Jordan Clarkson, a bucket off the bench. They got Gershon Yabusele to go in there. And I think you could possibly tweak the rotation, start Mitchell Robinson, bring Josh Hart off the bench. I think that there's more lineup configurations that you can play with now that Mike Brown will be more willing to do than Tom Thibodeau. So how much pressure do you see is on Mike Brown right now? Do you think he's the right man for the job to potentially take the Knicks to the promised land? I want to see it. I'm a Philly guy, and I would love to see something good happen to Knicks fans at one point.
You're awfully kind to me for a Philly guy. I didn't realize that. But what I would say is Mike Brown is under pressure because the bar that we've set is if you make the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years, you could still get fired, right? Like the bar at this point, and like this is the Tom Thibodeau situation is emblematic of the state of affairs in the NBA at large, right? Like where Michael Malone wins the championship, and 2 years later he's out because of internecine fighting and non-alignment, and Frank Vogel wins the title, and a year later he's out. Darvin Ham makes the Western Conference Finals, and a year later he's out. Like the windows are so small and so short. It's open for such a short period of time, and it's getting narrower and shorter every year. It seems like, given the high cost of rosters and the challenges of paying into the luxury tax and into the repeater and with the aprons and the restrictions on roster management and all those sorts of things. So like, you got to get it when you got it. And I think the message of we're moving on from Tom Thibodeau is like, that's not a move that you make as an organization if you feel like you're where you are supposed to be. It's a move you make if you feel like you've got a championship roster that isn't being maximized. Mike Brown, I think, is an interesting kind of thread the needle choice, because I think if you zoom out from his resume and what he was, defensive-minded culture coming out of his years as an assistant in San Antonio under Greg Popovich and in Indiana under Rick Carlisle, and during those years with Cleveland where they were built obviously on LeBron, but like they were elite defensive teams. They're not elite offensive teams outside of LeBron. Right. And so then he goes and it's the skirt and the pivot. There's the brief period in LA where they make the playoffs, and then he's gone after 5 games in his second season. He has the time on the Golden State bench where he was a defensive coordinator, but also heavily involved in the offense and a lot more motion, and then brings that motion to Sacramento. And so it's like the idea of this is somebody who is capable of being conversant in a number of different styles, can bring you a lot of the same, we do not compromise on our defensive principles, period, kind of, hard assery, for lack of a better term, of Tom Thibodeau, but has shown a willingness to be more flexible, to go deeper into his rotation, to say, I'm going to take the talent that I've got and I'm going to institute more ball movement, more player movement, more fluidity, more motion, and not just have it be station-to-station basketball where everybody's watching one guy cook. Right. The thing that I think will be fascinating to see, like, you look at the Knicks roster and there's playmakers, there's guys who can pass, there's guys who are capable of facilitating.
They just haven't had the opportunity to do it. Because the ball's in Jalen's hands most of the time, right?
And you know what? It's a pretty good spot for it to be in Jalen Brunson's hands. But also, Karl-Anthony Towns as a wonderful offensive player, but he's not structurally like Domantas Sabonis, right? Where that is he can pass. He can be a high post passer. He can be somebody making drop down cuts. But also I have a vision in my head of Towns with his back to the basket and kind of like throwing hook shots over his head, passing to cutters and like passing it into 4 dudes and it getting like booted out of bounds. So like he can be a little bit too like, check this out. And it's like, that's not what we need here. We need a handoff. Yeah, exactly. We need a handoff into the next motion. But I think the player that I think is going to be most fascinating to watch here, and it's kind of a cop-out, is like, is Jalen Brunson more comfortable getting off it, right? Like the way, I mean, obviously the reason that everything works in Golden State the way it works is because, you know, all things are possible through Steph Curry. But the reason that things operate the way they do, he gets off it, makes himself a screener, makes himself a threat off the ball, and that activates everybody else. We know Jalen Brunson can cook as an on-ball creator. We know he's somebody that if you run him through 40, 50 pick and rolls a game, you're going to get good stuff out of it. But we also know, and one thing that I remember, I was able to follow the Knicks. I was there covering the games here in New York, but then I was also on the road for the Eastern Conference Finals to watch them against the Pacers. And like, in the beginnings of those games, Thibodeau would come out and call for sets that got Brunson off the ball early. He's coming off out of the corner, coming around handoffs. You're getting more motion early. And it was like, it felt almost like the idea was, let's start the game by having you moving and like not just giving you the ball with a high screen and you know, 1-4 flat or whatever, 3 of the space to the corners and then the high screen.
Go to work,
So he's got, we're going to find out if the Knicks' more stagnant approach was coaching oriented or star oriented. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting to find out, because we know that Mike Brown, given his druthers, wants to play more passing, more movement, faster into your sets, across half court earlier, get into your actions with, you know, more time on the shot clock, be able to go deeper and spread the floor, all those sorts of things. Now we're going to find out if Jalen Brunson wants to play that way. And I think he's capable of it. I think guys like Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, maybe a larger role for Mikal Bridges. Towns, if he's not sort of minimized as a spacer, all these sorts of, like, there's opportunities for a higher end offensive creation there, but it's got to come from the top down. And I think if Jalen Brunson shows that he's willing to buy into that, the sky could be the limit for the Knicks offense under Mike Brown.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how they can adapt. I do think getting Jalen Brunson off ball more and just as more of a facilitator, getting others involved, because I don't know if Bobby Marks was alluding to the fact that a deal's been done for Mikal Bridges, but this is a pretty important time for him.
Absolutely.
Extension eligible, 4 years, I think $150 million, something like that. It's going to be an interesting time to see if he's going to be ready to step up, because I think many of the Knicks fans were expecting a different version of him, maybe the Brooklyn Nets version, maybe us with more defense and a little bit more offense. But, you know, 5 picks, that's a hell of an investment for a guy that really wasn't utilized at all and showed no aggression to get to the rim, get into the foul line. I think that's what's going to take this team to the next level, along with, as you said, you know, playing more through Karl-Anthony Towns and playing to his strengths. And maybe Mike Brown can unlock it. We will see. It is definitely going to be a tall order, considering the way he went out in Sacramento and the players not really actively supporting or wanting to hear his agenda as that. It seemed like it kind of wore on him. Kind of similar to what Tibs does. He kind of wears on you a little bit.